of a boat to walk on the water toward Jesus? Was it A, Andrew, B, Peter, C, James, or D, John? The answer is B. Peter stepped out of a boat to walk on the water toward Jesus. The next question for a total of 1/2 of a point. What kind of water did Jesus offer to the Samaritan woman? Was it A, fresh water, B, salty water, C, sweet water, or D, living water? The answer is D. Jesus offered living water to the Samaritan woman. The next question for 500 points. On what day did God create water? Was it A, the first day, B, the second day, C, the fifth day, or D, the sixth day? The answer is B. God created water on the second day. The next question for a supercalifragilistic number of points. Jesus was baptized in the water of which river? Was it A, the River Jordan, B, the Dead Sea, C, the Sea of Galilee, or D, the Mediterranean Sea? The answer is A. Jesus was baptized in the water of the River Jordan. The next question for 1,000 points. Including Noah, how many people were kept safe in the ark? Was it A, 2 people, B, 4 people, C, 6 people, or D, 8 people? The answer is D. Including Noah, 8 people were kept safe in the ark. The next question for 12 points. How did Moses divide the Red Sea so the Israelites could cross over? Did he A, lift up his hands and shout aloud, B, strike the sea with his rod, C, walk into the sea and command it to stop, or D, lift his rod and stretch his hand over the sea? The answer is D. Moses divided the Red Sea so that the Israelites could cross by lifting his rod and stretching his hand over the sea. The next question for 800 points. Who did Pharaoh's daughter find hidden in a basket in the Nile River? Was it A, Noah, B, Moses, C, Elijah, or D, Joseph? The answer is B. Pharaoh's daughter found Moses hidden in a basket in the Nile River. And the last question for double your current points. Why did the Lord want to destroy man by flood? Was it A, because man was too strong, B, because man was too wicked, C, because man was too smart, or D, because man was too nice? The answer is B. The Lord wanted to destroy man by flood because man was too wicked. Thank you for playing Bible Trivia. We hope you'll play again soon. Welcome to Bible Trivia. This time, we'll be asking questions about Jesus feeding 5,000 people. The first question for 100 points. What food did a young boy have with him? Was it A, 7 grapes, B, 2 melons and 2 fish, C, 2 fish and 5 barley loaves, or D, 5 barley loaves and a fig? The answer is C. The young boy had 2 fish and 5 barley loaves. The next question for 200 points. How many people gathered to hear Jesus teach? Was it A, 500 men plus women and children? Was it B, 5,000 men plus women and children? C, 1,000 men plus women and children? Or D, 2,000 men plus women and children? The answer is B. 5,000 men plus women and children gathered to hear Jesus teach. The next question for 1 million points. What is another name for the Sea of Galilee? Is it A, Lake Tiberias, B, the Dead Sea, C, the Mediterranean Sea, or D, the waters of Merom? The answer is A. Another name for the Sea of Galilee is Lake Tiberias. The next question for a bunch of points. In which place were Jesus and his disciples when he fed the people? Was it A, on the beach, B, on a hill near Lake Galilee, C, in a forest near Lake Galilee, or D, on a boat in the Sea of Galilee? The answer is B. Jesus and his disciples were on a hill near Lake Galilee when he fed the people. The next question for 4 points. Why did Jesus ask Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for the people to eat?" Was it A, to test him, B, he needed to buy bread to feed the people, C, he was hungry, or D, he wanted Peter to buy bread for everyone? The answer is A. Jesus asked Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for the people to eat?" to test him. The next question for a gajillion points. What did Jesus do when he held the loaves of bread? A, he blessed it, B, he sold it, C, he ate it, or D, he dropped it? The answer is A. Jesus blessed the loaves of bread when he held them. The next question for a few points. After the people had eaten, how many baskets of food were filled with leftovers? Was it A, 8, B, 10, C, 11, or D, 12? The answer is D. After the people had eaten, there were 12 baskets of food filled with leftovers. The next question for 500 points. Which feast was about to begin? Was it A, Passover, B, the Feast of First Fruits, C, the Feast of Trumpets, or D, the Feast of Unleavened Bread? The answer is D. The Feast of Unleavened Bread was about to begin. The next question for so many points. In which region did this event take place? Was it A, Galilee, B, Gozan, C, Israel, or D, Zebulun? The answer is A. This event took place in the region of Galilee. And the last question for double your current points. Where did Jesus go after he had fed the crowd? A. He sailed away on a boat. B. To pray on a mountain by himself. C. To meet with his 12 disciples. Or D. He continued to talk with the large crowd of people. The answer is B. After he had fed the crowd, Jesus went to pray on a mountain by himself. Thanks for playing Bible Trivia. We hope you'll play again soon. Welcome to Bible Trivia. This time we'll be asking who am I questions about the New Testament. The first question for 100 points. They were friends with Paul. Is it A, Abraham and Sarah, B, Isaac and Rebekah, C, Priscilla and Aquila, or D, Joseph and Mary? The answer is C. Priscilla and Aquila were friends with Paul. The next question for 200 points. He was raised from the dead. Is it A, Peter, B, Lazarus, C, James, or D, John? The answer is B. Lazarus was raised from the dead. The next question for lots and lots of points. This person betrayed Jesus for money. Was it A, Judas, B, Thomas, C, Bartholomew, or D, Thaddeus? The answer is A. Judas betrayed Jesus for money. The next question for a half of a point. He baptized an Ethiopian believer. Was it A, Abel, B, Barnabas, C, Benjamin, or D, Philip? The answer is D. Philip baptized an Ethiopian believer. The next question for 500 points. He was a high priest. Is it A, Jesus, B, Caiaphas, C, Luke, or D, Samuel? The answer is B. Caiaphas was a high priest. The next question for a supercalifragilistic number of points. He was one of the 12 disciples. Was it A, Peter, B, Levi, C, Ryan, or D, Gabriel? The answer is A. Peter was one of the 12 disciples? The next question for 1,000 points. She was the mother of Jesus. Was it A. Martha, B. Esther, C. Mary, or D. Joanna? The answer is C. Mary was the mother of Jesus. The next question for 12 points. This person was a tax collector who was rich and also short. Is it A. Zacchaeus, B. Matthew, C. Luke, or D. Levi?